peak physiology in terms of the optimal physiology. And physiology again is it's a fancy word for the word body. You know how are you using your body? So I want to make sure as you're about to read again to really check your posture. Remember we talked about being upright is to put you into a visual mode, which is mostly reading. It also doesn't allow you to compress your diaphragm, which makes it harder to breathe. And the breathing is so important. In fact, one of the things you could do right now is take a deep breath, and for a count of four, actually do this with me right now. Take a deep breath for a count of four. One, inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold. 2, 3, 4. And now exhale. 2, 3, 4. Breathe normally. Good. And this is something called alpha breathing, where you're breathing in for a count, inhaling for a count of 4. You're holding for a count of 4, and then you're exhaling for a count of 4. And there's been a research done that says that helps be put into an alpha state. An alpha state again is a relaxed state of awareness. One of the best states to learn to be in, especially before and as you're preparing for reading. The other thing I want to make sure that you do is make sure you're hydrated. Okay, because remember we talked about your brain, being composed just like your body, about 70-80% water, and you want to make sure that you stay hydrated, especially because your brain is bioelectrical, and water is very, very important in the process. So make sure, if you don't already, to maybe pause this and have a glass of water close to you. And then the other thing is the book position. Putting that underneath physiology, it's kind of like how you're holding the book. And remember what we talked about, if you're going to have upright posture, you want to make sure that the book is kind of tilted, preferably right on the desk in front of you or the table in front of you. All right, so if you have a workstation or you're working on a kitchen table or your office desk, to have the book tilted and rested on the table in front of you, and then it's tilted at an angle, so you're looking again at the text at a full where you're maximizing it. Because if you tilt the book and leave it flat on the table, then you're seeing it, if your body's upright, you're seeing it again as an angle. All right, so that's going back, talking about your physiology. Now we're going to do the same exact exercise, and this time I want you now to read between the beginning mark where you started off and the ending mark where you left off. And instead of doing it in 4 minutes, I'm going to ask you to do it in 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes. So you're going to do it more quickly. Now for this, remember, you have to trust the process that I'm going to ask you to focus on speed now, and we'll focus on comprehension after this. Okay, so just get the mechanics down. And once you have that down, then you could be focusing more about what you read. Okay, because then you won't be thinking about, it's kind of like tying your shoe. I don't think anyone if you're watching this right now, you have to really think about tying your shoe. It's actually kind of a sophisticated process, but you don't consciously do it, just like you don't when you're driving. And what I want to get you to do is, as you're reading here, to start doing it unconsciously. But in order to do that, we need to be able to practice it. So I'm going to ask you to read the same thing in 3 minutes, and you're reading it, but what you're really doing is I just want you to finish. Okay, I want you to return to the beginning mark of where you started it, and you're exactly what you just read, the same material, and I want you to cover the same lines in 3 minutes using your left finger as a visual pacer. Okay, so again, you're going to go back and in effect reread what you just read, but you're not really focused on the act of reading. What I want you to do is just focus on following your finger through this material. And here's the rule: you have to, when I say 3 minutes are up, you have to finish in 3 minutes. Okay, irrespective of your comprehension. All right, so get ready and open up the book. And again, make sure your book is open. So if you need to be able to prime your book and lay it out and open it up and kind of push the pages open, make sure it's comfortable for you, make sure you're in a peak state, and begin. Now remember, you're going quicker this time, and I'm talking specifically to you as a form of distraction to get you to really hone your training. But you're not really focused on the words, you're focused on the speed. And I want you to pace it so you finish close to the 3 minute mark. Make sure you're breathing and not holding your breath. Really enjoy the process. Okay, that's 1 minute. Keep reading. Remember, you're going faster this time, using your left finger. We're at 1.5 minutes. You should be halfway through your material. And if you happen to finish early, keep on reading. Keep on going through. Okay, you're at 2 minutes. You're doing great. Keep going. Enjoy the process. If you're getting some material, if you're getting some understanding, that's bonus. Just really kind of enjoy the process, using your finger as you read, looking at the words right above your finger. You have 30 seconds left. Put a smile on your face as you're reading. You're learning a skill very few people can do. 15 seconds. Finish up. Go speed through it. If you haven't finished yet, speed up. You have 5 seconds left. Finish to the end. Make sure you get to that end mark. And stop. Great job. Okay, so that was 3 minutes, and that was a speed drill, right? These are your quick learning, these are your quick reading drills. You know, it's kind of these sprints, and you're conditioning yourself like a muscle, because that's what the mind is, right? The mind is like a muscle. And then it goes even beyond a metaphor to the point where it's just like you're lifting weights, and you're starting up something, you're starting really heavy, and you go lighter, lighter, lighter. You'll be able to get stronger and stronger, stronger, because you're changing, right? Okay, so what we're going to do here now is I would really want to remember, we're talking about the 5 P's and the pillars. Really, really remember your psychology, right? This is your overall attitude. Remember, because all learning is state dependent, right? You want to be in that relaxed alpha state. Remember, the 3 things that put you into alpha state, really easily, is the breathing exercise like we just did, inhaling for 4, holding it for 4, and exhaling for 4, and repeating that maybe 6 or 7, 8 times. Listening to music, specifically classical Baroque music. I don't know if you had a chance to try that from the last lessons. Vivaldi, Bach, music, classical music that has about 60 beats per minute. Put you in that relaxed alpha state, and visualizing helps you to do that as well. Create a visualization inside your mind. And what you're doing as you're reading this, you're getting that peak stage, you're really enjoying. Remember, I say enjoy it, enjoy it. And it's more than just affirmations. I want people to associate, because the more you enjoy this process, the more I know you're going to do it. And then also having that fascination, that childlike curiosity, and that positive expectancy. Something great is about to happen. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this again, and this time I'm going to ask you to do it in 2 minutes. Okay, in 2 minutes. So this is your speed drill right now. So I'm your track coach, if you will, and I know you could go farther than you currently are reading. I know that. There's nobody that could tell me any differently, working with as many people as I've had the opportunity to work with over a decade and a half, doing these assessments with individuals, improving reading rates, that you have this gift. All right, and hopefully you're seeing some progress, and what you're going to do is, again, practice makes permanent. All right, so we're going to read the same material. Go back again to the beginning mark. Return to that beginning mark again. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to cover the same number of lines, cover the same number of material in 2 minutes using your left finger. Okay, this means you have to go through it how fast? Twice as fast as you did originally. All right, now remember, we're suspending the comprehension. right now. And I know comprehension is so important, and that's a big part of what we're going to be going through in the next session. I'm going to give you the keys to comprehension, the keys to retention. But right now I'm going to ask you to suspend that right now. And if you get understanding, which a lot of you are right now, is that's just a bonus. I want you to read for 2 minutes and really forget about so much reading, but you're practicing and you're going through. I want you to cover the same amount of material in 2 minutes, okay? And do it and enjoy it and do it quickly. And you're just kind of like you're almost like brushing crumbs, off the page, if you will. You're just kind of like sweeping crumbs off the page, and you're using like a one finger going through, like a pointing finger, like your index finger. You're just pointing it and going underlining it, or you're kind of like making that OK sign with your hand, where you're taking your index finger and you're taking your thumb, you're putting together making a circle, and you're reading using those top, where your other three fingers are together, close together, and you're reading with the top finger. And you're just kind of brushing crumbs off the page. And the key again is to get to the end mark in 2 minutes. Okay? Get ready, breathe, sit up straight, tilt your book, and go. More quickly. You're going through it twice as fast at least. Excellent. Underlining the words, going side to side, side to side. 30 seconds in so far. Okay, it's 1 minute. You should be at least halfway through. At least halfway through. If not, you need to speed up. Remember, you're not going for comprehension, you're going for the technique. Make sure you breathe. Smile on your face. Faster. Okay, we're a minute and a half in. You have 30 seconds. Keep going, keep going. And if you already reached the end, just keep on reading. You're doing great. You're training your eyes to move quickly. Okay, 10 seconds. If you have a lot left, speed through it, even if you're using your finger and covering 2 or 3 lines in one stroke. And stop. Excellent. That was 2 minutes. Fantastic. Now we're going to do this one more time, and we're going to do it in 1 minute. And that actually say minute. 1 minute and 60 seconds. Okay, same exercise. You're going to return to the beginning mark. You're going to cover the same number of lines in 1 minute using a visual pacer. 1 minute using the visual pacer. All right. Are you ready? Now you're going to go through it super quick, 4 times faster than you did before. Ready, set, and go. Quickly, quickly. Remember, you're going really fast, even if you have to cover 2 or 3 lines on one stroke, or one forward, one backwards. Go quickly. 30 seconds in, you have 30 seconds. You should be halfway through. Faster, faster. Fast, 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 fast. Very, very quick. Turn the pages quick. Very nice. Wow. Faster, faster, faster. 15 seconds. Go, 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 go. I'm realizing this 10 seconds is very, very fast. Finish up, finish up. You have 5 seconds. Finish up. Even if you have to cover the whole page in one stroke, finish up and stop. Okay, now that should probably feel a little bit taxing at the end there, because you're basically asking you to read 4 times faster. So if you started reading at, like, let's say 250 words a minute, then what you're going through that information is about 1,000 words a minute. And so when you hear that, John F. Kennedy and some other famous people are extremely fast readers, or you're reading at 1,000 or 1,200 words a minute, it gives you an idea of how quickly that actually is. So give yourself a little pat on the back, because that was extraordinary. And what I want you to do now is I want you to take some notes. All right, I want you to take a breath. All right, because you just pushed yourself. And what I ask for you is, it's kind of like you're driving. If you're going like 200, not that you would ever do this. Let's say you're driving on the highway, you're going 65 miles an hour because that's the speed limit, maybe a little bit higher. And then you're going through town, and you're going through town at like 40 miles an hour. And then you go right off the highway, and it feels a lot slower. Now, 40 miles an hour is not necessarily slow, but relative to your initial speed of going 60, 70 miles an hour, it seems fast in contrast. And that's exactly what we're doing here. You're training yourself to take in information more quickly. According to studies done, even one at the university, I believe it was the University of Chicago, saying that the average person read, whether it's, let's say, 200, 250 words a minute, that your mind can actually take in information closer to 800 or 1,000 plus words per minute. Okay, so what we're doing is you're training your mind to take in this information quickly, and it's just like the quote that once a person's mind is stretched, it never regains its original dimensions. Oliver Wendell Holmes. So that's what we're doing. And what I'm going to ask you to do right now, and this is kind of a segue to the next session where we're going to talk about comprehension, is I'm going to ask you to take notes on those pages. Okay, and specifically, I'm going to ask you to ask 4 questions. And the 6 main questions that you're taught in school, right, or all journalists have to cover in their writings. Specifically, what I want you to do now is I want you to ask yourself, write notes on these 4 questions on what you're reading. I want you to describe the what. Okay, so on a piece of paper in your notebook for this section, I want you to have a page dedicated to what. And on that page, I just want you to put the key words, and I'll talk about this more in the comprehension section. I just want you to list the key words on some of the stuff that's going on with your book. Okay, so the what would be anything plot related. Okay, so let's say that there's a legal trial, right? Or there was a murder, right? Or there was an election. Whatever's going on in your book, start writing the keywords specifically about what you just read, all right? Because we find that keywords are one of the best ways to be able to take notes, right? Because the keywords give you the key pictures and the key ideas, and a picture is worth what? 1,000 words. So you're going to write the what, and specifically on the plot. And instead of writing long sentences, and certainly you can do that if you like, at the very least I'd like you to put in the key words about what's going on. There's a family vacation, there was an accident, there was a lottery drawing. Whatever's going on in your book, you're going to write a page and you're going to put the what. Okay. When you're done with that, I want you to create another page and I want you to put the who. Another page I want you dedicated to who. And the who is obviously anything character. Who are the characters in your book? Okay, and so you're writing down the names of the people. Now, if you don't have a predisposition towards names, or let's say some people just don't sort by names, they'll read a book and they'll recognize the names, but they don't remember the names, for example, then I want you to just write a description of the people, all right, or the characters, whether they're animals or or there's a man, there's a woman, there's a lawyer, there's the president of the United States. Even if you don't know what the name is, I want you to write down a description or a title of those people. As many of the people as you remember. It doesn't have to be in any specific order at all. What you're doing is you're putting your focus on the people that you know. Okay? Because in your brain you have something called a reticular activating system. And that's what one of the mechanisms in your brain that allow you to be able to focus on certain things. And by writing these things down, you charge that, and you start looking for more stuff. And you'll also start asking yourself questions about things you do not know. For some things you'll go through and you're like, I don't know this person's name. And then as you read it the second time, you're going to look for those answers, right? Because if you want good questions, ask, sorry, if you want good answers, ask good questions, right? Because I literally mix those two up all the time because questions are the answer. Questions are the answer. And when you're done with the who, I want you to put on top of a page where. Where? And this sounds kind of like third grade, something you would do like when you're 8 or 10 years old. What we're going back to is we're changing, we're going back to the basics. We're going back to the way you should have learned it earlier on, and you're training yourself to really understand what comprehension is. And you're training your mind. At any given time, your mind can focus on a billion different stimuli in your sensory experience. And what we're doing is we're going to be able to focus that amazing potential towards the key things that you want to learn. So you have laser-like focus in when you read. So the where obviously is anything having to do with the context. Where's the story taking place? Where are the characters? And so there you're putting Atlanta, Georgia. You're putting in, the rainforest. You're putting, if you're reading science fiction, you're putting, the name of the planets. Wherever it's taking place in a church. And as the context, whatever context, as the story changes, you're just writing them down. Again, no rhyme or reason. The only organization I'm going to ask you to is on that page is just anything that has to do with where. Okay? No specific order, just capture it. And then the last thing I want you to do is create a page in when. And that's your when page. And this probably won't change a whole lot, but depending on what you're reading, it certainly could. All right, so maybe it's the summer of 1973, or maybe it's someone's wedding night. And so to the best of your ability to describe the time of when it's taking place. And if it's changing, then write that down. And some people, as you're going through this, you might not know where, or you might not know when. So what do you think is going to happen when you start to read again? You're going to start looking for clues. You're going to start looking at fashion. You're going to start looking at the words that they're using to give you a sense of when your story is taking place, the technology, the cars that people are driving, the clothing people are wearing, all right? Because you have background, what they call schema. Schema is like the background information of what you know. Okay? So you're going to start training yourself to look for the what, the who, the where, and the when. Perfect. And so this week's assignment is to do exactly this. I'm going to ask you to practice the 4-3-2-1 using your left finger. Okay, this is not something that happens right overnight, and yet you'll be surprised what could happen in 21 to 30 days. Okay, sometimes in the beginning it's kind of like you go to the gym and you feel a little sore the first week of practicing because you're using muscles that you didn't even know that you had. You wake up in the morning, you're just like can't get out of bed because of how sore you feel. And that's the whole thing. If you're not feeling a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of eustress, if you will, like you're working out, you're lifting weights, then you're probably learning something that you already know. So I'm going to ask you to practice using 4-3-2-1. And remember, when you start getting to like 2 minutes and 1 minute, you're probably not going to understand. In fact, I'll be totally surprised if you understand everything that you're reading at that pace. Okay, you're not supposed to, and if you don't understand it, then you're getting it right, but it's creating a certain level of confusion and uncomfort because then when we go back and you read at your regular rate, it's going to be significantly higher. Okay, because again, it's the same analogy, the same metaphor that we used about driving your car. If someone's driving it at 200 miles an hour and then they're asked to go to 50 miles an hour, it becomes so simple. Just like lifting weights, as you're increasing the weight load, when you go back down to something that's comfortable, you find that you elevated from your old base rate. And that's what we're doing. And so I'm going to ask you to practice the 4-3-2-1 every single day for the next 7 days. And then when you're done, I'm going to ask you to return to your notebook and then fill in the who, the what, the where, and the when. I want to congratulate you on going through this session, and if you need to over the next 7 days, you certainly could go back and re-listen to the sessions that we talked about just to review the importance of physiology, the importance of psychology. If you want me to walk you through and do the timing exercises, certainly you could re-listening to this session for the next 7 days. And in the next session, what I'm going to give you is more speed and really focus on comprehension and retention. In fact, speed is one thing, speed reading. What we're going to talk about is smart reading, and I'm going to give you some amazing memory techniques and devices to be able to remember and comprehend more about what you read. All right, so I want to thank you for joining me. You're really an A player. This is a skill. I was watching recently an interview. They had a back to school with two of the wealthiest people in America, and it was Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, and they called it Back to School. And I think if you go to YouTube, you could find it. And they asked, somebody in the audience asked Bill and Warren, if you had one superpower, what would it be? And Bill Gates said it would be the ability to read faster. And Warren Buffett said he would literally have saved years of his life if he had that skill to be able to do that. And this is one of the skills that you're learning now. So I want to congratulate you on taking this step and also taking the next steps. And when you look back on this, looking back positively with a big smile on your face, thinking like, wow, I put in the time and the effort and I was rewarded immensely for it. So congratulations on that, and I'll see you in the next session. Have an incredible, unforgettable day.